Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be showing off this area which is part of the medieval fantasy RPG that my team and I have been working on for a while. This particular area is part of one of the magical schools that has been abandoned for some time. The goal here was to make an area that was as old and decayed looking as possible with the assets we had. There will be quests that take the player to this location, so not all the buildings need to be destroyed, just weathered looking. These arches in particular are meant to segment off an area of the map, which makes designing around it so much easier. It also gives the player some landmarks in this closed-in area. After getting this spacing and scaling correct, I moved on to designing some of the buildings that would be in this area. First up, a destroyed building. Giving this building a destroyed feeling is actually rather easy. Throw in some destroyed looking walls, as well as some rubble on the ground, some broken pieces of timber. Creates an okay effect. Modular kits are very powerful in this way. Even for the sake of quests, it doesn't quite matter what this building was originally used for when it was new. We could, of course, give context clues as to what it might have been used for originally, such as notes with alchemical recipes to tell the player that it was once part of the school that was used for teaching alchemy. But some of the best stories are written by the player in their own mind. So we'll leave this place kind of generic and let the player fill in what happened here in their own mind. Creating this type of destruction can sometimes be difficult if you don't have the proper kind of modular kit, but it's doable with enough creativity. Here we're adding in some broken barrels and crates. There shouldn't be anything searchable in this area yet. Here we are painting on the landscape for the path the player can walk on. Some of it should be a little overgrown, but not too much. Moving on, I started designing this building out of this plaster type material. I was wary about using any of this material in this area, but I figure that if I use vertex painting, I should be able to give it a weathered look. Vertex painting is a very, very cool thing. Here we're adding in some grass to break up the monotony of the dirt. Now onto this building that we're placing next to one of these larger columns. It doesn't quite matter what this building would have been. It could have been a storage area or something similar. Now to place some statues. rather generic, but gives sort of a feeling, which would be more understandable once you have the context of the quests in this area. Here, I really wanted to add in some elevation, even though only slightly. While there's plenty of curvature to the landscape in the entirety of this area, this one section looked a little too flat to me. So if I can raise up the landscape a little bit and add in sort of a rock wall terrace, then it'll make a nice change for the player. I wasn't sure here if I was going to do another fully stone building, or if I was going to go with a plaster style building. I ended up doing both, splitting it down the middle. On the bottom it's stone, on the top it's plaster. Again, we could give some absolutes on what this building might be. A sign, some wording, something like that. But for the overall design of the area, it doesn't quite matter. We get into those details when the quest designers come in and do their thing. We did make some mistakes right here. Scaling is sometimes difficult when working in large scenes, but easy enough to correct. Here we see one of the issues of working with modular kits. Sometimes it's hard to make a custom design work just right, but with the right amount of creativity, it's easily doable. Add more vertex painting to show some age on the plaster. It's a wonderful thing. Lots of grass and weeds. Here we're going with another plaster house design. We can fit two in this area, so we're going to use a rather generic layout to begin with, and then make them more detailed. Using these type of designs, you can prototype very quickly, and then add in much more detail later on. In this example, while these are both rather rectangular shaped houses, they're pretty different. Here is another example of the difficulty in working with modular kits, but I think that roof turned out okay. Adding detail is as simple as swapping out pieces. Here we're adding in the supports to add in some detail. And right here is a common thing the house itself did not fit very well with the landscape, so it's simple enough to add in some stones underneath for a foundation, and the result looks pretty good. Gotta have doors. While we could have went with just a path up to these houses, I decided to go with those paving stones to break up the monotony of the painted path. There's a lot taller grass in this area than would be elsewhere on the map, but it makes sense for the type of area we're going with. The foliage painter is an amazing tool. In addition to painting foliage, you can paint small things like rocks and twigs on the ground. Very good for adding in some detail in exposed area of the ground, like next to that tree. More vertex painting. And here's our final design. I'm quite happy with how it turned out. The grass is a little tall, but it works for the design. It's nice how it comes through some areas of the pathway without overgrowing it altogether. These houses, while simple, I think turned out well. Beautiful. Maybe consider liking and subscribing. I'll be doing more of these videos in the near future. Thanks for watching.